they're so loud. So if you hear banging, that's that. How are you this morning? Where are you tuning in from? Let me know. Today's topic is video editing for Instagram. Specifically, if you have a video that you have made for some other social network, how do you make it for Instagram? How do you do a re-edit or a recut, a reframe? And very exciting, I will be showing you the captioning workflow that is brand new inside of Premiere Pro, and auto captioning as well. I mean, my mind is blown every day when I use these AI tools. So I hope your mind will be blown too. I hope that you will be able to use them and save a lot of time with having to version things for different social medias. We got Steve, we got Tim. Hello, everybody. Tim says he thinks he missed that intro. The intro was basically just saying that I got new neighbors and they are very loud and they're upstairs and they're right above me. So that's the situation. That's the whole intro. Robzilla says no intro, she's famous. I am not. All right. So if you go over and see my screen here, I have a video pulled up in Premiere Pro. It's copyrighted music, so I can't really play too much of it. If you actually want to see it, go to my YouTube channel. But essentially, let me just mute it and I'll play it for you so you have an idea of what it looks like. This is a travel video from Toronto, and it's a little over a minute long. And I wanted it to be pretty short so that I could put it on Instagram, I could put it on IGTV, and all that. How did I make it this short so that the music would match, so that the music would line up? Because this music has lyrics and it's not just something that you can like fade out at the end. Personally, I like when I'm looking for music tracks, I'm looking for music tracks that are like this. So this is the full track here. And as you can see, it sort of has these chapters, right? It has an intro, then it has this chapter over here, then it has this like lower sort of chapter, then it has another one, then it has a little break here, it has a more intense chapter, then it dips completely, and then there's like 4 more chapters here. This is what I like, because then what I do is I take a little sliver of this, a little sliver of that, little sliver of each, I put it all together in that 1 minute, and that creates peaks and valleys for me in my music tracks so that I can have some contemplative moments, I can have some moments of like really intense action, and it's not just doing this, right? It's not just dragging that to the end and then adding a like a constant power effect to fade it out at the end. So I want to show you how I do this very simply, very quickly, very easily without even necessarily having to play it, but I will play the first 10 seconds. So let's just play the first 10 seconds so that you can hear what it sounds like. So essentially, it has the same phrase that repeats twice. I'm not a musician, okay? So maybe it's melody, or maybe that's the wrong word, but for me, it's the same phrase, and I can almost read it. So I can see, if I zoom in here into the timeline, I can see where that dip is, and then it's that bounce up, right? And I can see it's the same thing here. It's that dip and it's that bounce up. So I know that this spot and this spot are meant to be the same. So I can insert the cuts right there and right there and line them up. So something that maybe a lot of people would do is maybe they'll do like a cut here. Oh, my shortcuts. There we go. They'll do a cut here. So C, change that to the blade tool, a cut here, and then they'll move it over, right? But then it doesn't sound exactly correct. Let's play it. I mean, actually, I did a pretty good job because I'm really good at this, but it's usually not going to line up perfectly. So the way that I do this is I place that second cut that I know where it needs to be, and then I move that onto the second track so that I can zoom in and really see it and really line it up. And you can see right away, I have these like six little hills, one, two, three, four, five, six. And I have six little hills here, one, two, three, four, five, six, right? So I can use those to line up my track. But guess what? It doesn't zoom in any farther than that. And the hills, if I press Alt left and right, they're never going to exactly line up. Look at this. They're either going to jump from in front or from behind. Oop, I did Alt down instead of Alt side to side with the arrows. So how do I make it line up perfectly so that there's no, dissonance, there's no incongruence in it? Well, just go up here because right now I'm looking at this in frames, right? 24 frames per second. That's how I've set my timeline. If you go over here to sequence settings, you can see that my time base is 24 frames per second, technically 23.976, but who's counting? So instead, I'm going to click right in this area over here, and I'm going to go to show audio time units. And that is going to allow me to not only refine my music cut, but zoom in even further and show you what's really going on here. Because without doing this, if I try to zoom in, it can't go any farther. Like this is the farthest it can go. This is the most it can show me. So if I do show audio time units, now all of a sudden I can go in and like really, really see it to the like very detailed waveform if I want. And now I see those six hills very clearly. I can actually see that each of these six hills, one, two, three, four, five, six, is comprised of a bunch of hills themselves, right? So now I can like really refine it and scooch this over as much as possible to really, really line it up perfectly so that that edit is just on point as much as possible. Now, sometimes when you scooch, it doesn't budge because it is snapping to something on the timeline. So I don't know what it's snapping to. It might be snapping to the end here. It might be snapping to, maybe you have markers up here. Who knows, right? So just turn snapping off. You can either go up here to the magnet, or you could just press S and that turns snapping off. And that allows you to just really grab that second layer or second track and scooch it infinitesimally and like really line it up. You can see now these are like the sub hills within the six hills, and they're all lined up. And now I zoom out, everything is lined up. Now, if I want to then put this up on the first track, instead of just dragging it up, because as soon as I start dragging it up, it's going to lose its place because I have snapping turned off, right? And because I'm on audio time units. So instead of just dragging it up, I select it, I press Alt and up on the arrow, and that just punches it up directly. And now I can use something like the constant power transition. It's here in my favorites under the effects window. But if you don't have a favorites, you can just type in constant power, and there it is. Or you can create a favorites by going over here, creating a new favorites bin, and then dragging your most used effects. So I have constant power here. I'll just put it in there, and shablam, now it's a very smooth transition. Okay. So I've basically cut out that entire intro to make it a lot shorter. And this is how I edit everything I do for Instagram for myself and for my clients. If you don't know, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Valentina Vee. I'm a freelance filmmaker who lives in Los Angeles. I direct, shoot, and edit for brands, campaigns, all over the world. I've directed a show for Discovery. I've directed a travel show for Flickr and Fujifilm. I've directed a lot of different campaigns for like MTV and Dell and Nike and Apple and what have you. So that's my intro that I completely forgot about. You're welcome. Anyway, so that's how I would cut up a sequence, right? Or a music track. And I would go ahead and do the same thing basically throughout this whole thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Here it is. You can see I've inserted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cuts in here to make the track feel like it still has those chapters, but a little bit more condensed. And right now it is, it is 16 by 9, right? That's the aspect ratio. This is 16 long and 9 tall, right? So, AKA, this is 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels tall. But say I want to make something that is square, right? If I wanted to make this square, the first thing I think people would do is they would right click, they would go to reveal sequence and project so that you find it here. Then you would duplicate it. So you can either go to right click, duplicate, or you can just press Alt and drag down to duplicate. And then I'm going to rename this square and then open that up. Obviously, nothing's changed because it's just a duplicate, right? So I would go to sequence settings, and change it to, a square aspect ratio. So right now it's 1920 by 1080, 16 by 9, just like we talked about. I would do 1080 by 1080 and make it a square. So now it's 1 by 1, and I press OK. And it's like, are you sure? Because you have a bunch of rendered clips on this timeline, and making them square will make them unrendered. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I get it. So as you can see, that green line up top changed to yellow because it was all rendered before. Well, mostly. I don't know why it's red now, but it was. And now it's all yellow. But the thing that it's done essentially is it's taken all of those clips that are actually like this size and it's just cut the middle out. So if I, for example, select a clip, let's just select, let's select a clip with a face in it, maybe. Let's see, zoom in so I can see the thumbnails in my timeline a little bit. Oh no. Is it? Okay, there we go. If I go to Effect Controls Motion, I can see the bounding box around it. And I can see that this is the actual size of the clip and it is just cut out the center, right? But sometimes the action isn't in the center. Sometimes the point of interest is off center. Like here, I have this lady and she is with the umbrella and she's slightly off center, right? So I have to go into my motion controls. If I select the word motion, I can now move it side to side. Obviously, it moves freely. So if I hold down Shift, then it just moves side to side and it's a little bit easier for me to reframe. Or I can literally hover my mouse over the position controls and reframe it that way. And I can go through and reframe things so that they make sense for the square. And then say I've done all my reframing, when my client comes to me and is like, oh, you know what, Valentina, this all looks great, but now I want you to do it in a 4x5, because honestly, that is the most for Instagram, for the feed, that makes the most sense because that covers the most screen space, right? A 4x5. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just duplicate this sequence because obviously I want to preserve this just in case my client comes back and is like, I want it to be square again. So I go over here to Chameleon Square, Toronto Travel Video. Chameleon is the song, by the way. That's why I called it that. I say duplicate Chameleon by Mitra Gims. Tall rectangle. So instead of square, I'll do tall rectangle. Then I'll go over here, sequence settings. I'll try to figure out those sequence settings, blah, 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 right? And then each and every single one of them, I have to readjust. Boring and long. All of that, not necessary. Literally, ew, get rid of it. So instead of doing all that jazz, instead, let's just go back to the original one, 16 by 9, right? And we're going to right click. We're going to go to reveal sequence and project. So there it is in our little project there. And then we're just going to right click and go to auto reframe sequence. You guessed it, folks. Auto reframe. What do you think that does? It auto reframes it for us. So we're going to go to auto reframe sequence, and it will literally ask us, how do you want to auto reframe it? What is your target aspect ratio? Do you want it to be square? Do you want it to be a vertical rectangle? Do you want it to be like full vertical, or do you have like a custom thing in mind? Maybe, you're auto reframing this for like a website banner or something. I'm going to say, let's do 4x5. And I'm just going to call it Toronto Travel Video Chameleon, tall, square, auto reframed. And then it also asks you about the motion tracking. Now, this isn't telling you how it will track the motion. It's literally asking you the motion in your video. Is it fast or slow? Because that it wants to analyze it properly. So for example, if you have a lot of like action sports, you're going to want to select faster motion. If your entire video is filmed on tripods, you're going to want to select slower motion. I'm going to select default because I'm just going to let it do what it does. And then I'm going to press create. And bada bing, bada boom, that's it. That's it. It's done. There we go. So now it has gone ahead and auto reframed every single clip in my timeline to this new aspect ratio, which is pretty wild. Now, it gets it right most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. Like it got it right on this wide clip of this guy eating poutine. Don't worry, I asked him for permission. I didn't just and I got his John Hancock. Don't worry about it. I'm not just coming up to people and stealing their identities. But this one's off center, right? So even with auto reframe, because maybe it was looking at this, or maybe it was looking at the relationship between his face and what he's eating, but I really want his face in the middle. So what you can do over here under motion is you can disable the auto reframe. You see how it says motion disabled when auto reframe is applied. So when you deselect that, it actually goes back to normal. And normal was better in this case because he was already centered in the normal frame. So same thing, like over here, we have this pigeon, but the thing is, this entire clip was already had some warp stabilizer on it. So you can see that warp stabilizer kind of peeking in at the bottom over here, the edge of the frame's kind of creeping in, right? So I don't want that auto reframe. I just want it to stay steady, and I want it to kind of be exactly as it was in the previous clip. This one too, I can disable the auto reframe, move it a little bit around. So there is some finagling that goes on, but much, much less than if you were to do every single clip from scratch. This one too, like it doesn't end up on the leaf like this. So maybe a good idea would be to reframe it or to turn the motion controls off here, to redo the auto reframe, to reframe it yourself. So yeah. Another thing I just want to have you note, and this is something that I learned from the editors of at World of Wonder. They do an amazing show with drag queens Trixie Mattel and Katya. So shout out to as if they're ever going to watch this. But anyway, Ron and Jeff, shout out. They do this thing where if they put their own motion controls on something, they do it on an adjustment layer. And I'll show you why. So here, for example, we have this clip of this biker, and the clip itself has a speed ramp on it. As you can see, this white line represents the speed. Tim says, I wish there was also some way to automatically remix the audio track to the desired length. Well, Tim, there is, right? It's called Remix. Thank you for cueing that. It's called Remix, and it's in Audition. But that is not what we're doing today, because the auto remix in Audition doesn't sort of take into account all the chapters that you want, right? So if you want to do it custom, I showed you the way to do it custom. The remix in Audition is good for if you just have like a solid background track. So anyway, back to this. So you can see that the speed of it has actually adjusted like mid shot. This has a speed ramp here at the top. And the problem with creating keyframes and adjusting position with something that is speed ramped is that it's very hard to do because the speed has changed, right? So if I were to want to this biker to start on the left side of the screen and end up on the right side of the screen throughout this clip, so to start there and then to end there, I could potentially like try to move the position, but then the next position keyframe would be off, it would be like really hard to do. So instead of keyframing it up here on the clip itself, something that I learned from the World of Wonder editors, thank you so much, is do it on an adjustment layer. So you can go to your main sort of bins over here. You can create these the way that you want them. I created them as 0-1 sequences, 0-2 footage, where I put all my footage, and all my footage is color coded and organized by the location, because this is a travel video. So ferry, jazz festival, at night footage, parks footage, all that. I have my music folder, my time lapses folder. I'll make another folder, so another bin. I'll call it 05 graphics. And inside of there, I'll put an adjustment layer. So an adjustment layer is a layer that affects everything underneath it. And then I'll put that adjustment layer just on top of the clip with the bike. So now I can use a transform effect. So if I go into effects over here, I can do transform, video effects, distort, transform, put that on there. And now with the transform effect, I can move it, but obviously it's cropped. So I would still have to go inside of the nest. This is a nested sequence. So I can take the adjustment layer, copy it, Command C, delete it, go inside the nest by double clicking. And then here is that clip. And then if I want, I could still do the adjustment layer here. So there's that adjustment layer. And then I could do that. Oh, the adjustment layer is the size of the previous sequence. Duh. So I'd have to create a new adjustment layer. One sec. Let me go back to, this is, when you're doing it live, it's really obvious. So adjustment layer, tall square. I'll call that one adjustment layer, tall square. I'll create another adjustment layer. That is 4K. I'll put it here. I could put the transform control on it. But also, to be honest, because it's in the nest, I can also adjust the actual clip in the nest. So either or. But if I don't want to mess with the clip because it has like some sort of, it has warp stabilizer on it, or or something, then this would be the way to move it. So I could do this, position, keyframe, position, keyframe, and then go back to the auto reframed and then see how it does. Doesn't quite get to that end here by the end. So I'll do that other position keyframe a little bit more intense, and I'll adjust it. We don't have like all the time in the world for me to be adjusting this little thing back and forth, but you get it. I've basically moved it inside the nest using an adjustment layer that has a transform control on it. Right? Let's see. If anyone has any questions, I'm checking the Behance chat. Tom says, what are the 4x5 values exactly? So you can go to sequence settings and you can see here, it is 864 by 1080. Those are the frame size. That is the frame size for, your standard Instagram situation. So another way that you can do this, because say maybe that this is like, too zoomed in. You have some clips that are just, like um cut off, like not enough is showing, essentially. So here, let me show you. Like, for example, this dog statue, right? Or maybe for you, it's like you have an interview and there's two people and they're at either side of the screen. So if you cut off any bit, any slice down the middle, you can't see it. Or maybe you're putting this on IGTV and instead of a tall square, you have to do it vertical. Like, so if we wanted to do this video vertically, for example, instead of a tall square, I mean, a tall square already is hiding the statue dog's eye, right? And this isn't well framed. The whole point of this entire shot is it's supposed to transition us from the real dog, right? The real dog with the fountain to the fake dog, which is part of the fountain, to the wide of the fountain directly behind that fake dog, right? So it's a match on content, but it's hard to tell what that is because it's so zoomed in. And if we auto reframe the sequence, so if we go to reveal sequence in project, it's already an auto reframe sequence tall square. But if we right click, do auto reframe sequence again, and instead of tall square, we say vertical, and we try to make it vertical, and we press create, you see how it's going to be even more difficult for us to get that dog in the shot because maybe you initially made this video in a way where it was meant for 16 by 9. There's no way to like make it vertical elegantly. There's no way to cut a center out. So something that you can do is letterbox it, right? So letterboxing, super, super easy. What I would do, this is how I would do it. Okay. There's like a million ways to do this, but I have my main sequence, which is the chameleon short, travel video chameleon short, right? Our original sequence that we were working with, the 16 by 9. I would go into my main sequences. I'd make a new sequence, new item sequence, and I'd make it vertical. So I'd go into settings. I'd do 1080 by 1920. And you can actually make it a preset. So if you have everything set here that you want, time base 23.976, editing mode, it doesn't really matter because we're already living in like the custom space. I think this has custom as an option, perhaps. Yeah. Editing mode custom, time base 23.976, frame size 1080 by 1920. All this is good. You can actually make this a preset. So save preset, call it vertical IG, and then say okay. And now it'll just show up on the bottom of the list under custom. Hello, what? There we go, custom. So right here, what did we do? Vertical IG, there it is. Call it chameleon travel video letterboxed. Say okay. And then all we do is we drag that entire sequence, the entire thing over here, into our new sequence. And obviously it's cut off at the sides. So we'll scale it a little bit. So now it's very, very much letterboxed, right? So something that I like to do is I'll duplicate it on top of itself by holding down command and then dragging up. So now I've duplicated the sequence on top of itself. And again, this is a nested sequence. So if we click into it, double click it, we go into the actual full sequence. So I haven't like burned anything in. This isn't a video clip that I'm working with. It's a sequence within a sequence. Then I take the bottom one, I'll scale it up more. And then I'll take the opacity down slightly. And I'll go ahead, I'll go into effects and I'll throw on a Gaussian blur. Make sure repeat edge pixels is on and blur it. So that's one way to do it. So now we do see the full effect. sometimes, maybe I'm like, okay, there's some stuff that I don't mind that it's cut off. So I just want a little bit more real estate on screen. So let me scale it up. And now I can scale it up to any non-standard size. I don't have to stick with 4 by 3 or 4 by 5 or 1 by 1, and all that jazz. Okay. But, and then I can reframe things too. So if I want to reframe, I can always go inside of it, right? Double click and then reframe any particular clip. Ooh, let me go back to the letterbox version. So let's say I want to reframe, let's see, I want to reframe this lady, right? Because she is the actual like center of the shot, and say I wanted this to be a little bit more punched in, so there's a little bit more real estate. All I have to do is double click at the playhead, and that goes inside, and now I can adjust her and then go back to my letterbox version, and there she is in the center, right? But that's lucky for me that I have that ability to do that because it's a sequence, right? What if I don't have the ability because it's a clip? It's already a burned in sequence. What happens then? Well, this happens a lot too, right? Say that you don't have access to the original files and you don't have access to the original clips, and all you have is one video. There's still a way to do it. So let's go over here to this other project. And I believe that maybe my hard drive got disconnected, because I feel like it definitely did. So give me just a sec. I think, no, it should be fine. Let's go over here. Let me just relink this. Right click, link media, locate. I think my hard drive just wasn't used for a while and it decided to just like crap out on me. It's totally fine. Okay, so here is that clip. It is a full video. It's everything, right, in that video. And if I want to, say I want to, I have this video. This is from the Aperture YouTube channel. I host a cinematography show on there, but I want to advertise this video on my Instagram and tell people, hey, I'm funny. And I want to take a funny section of it and put it on my Instagram. Now, rule of thumb is on Instagram, everything has to work silently. So not only do I have to caption it, but also I have to make sure that it takes up as much screen real estate as humanly possible on that Instagram feed, right? So the first thing, one thing that I can do, like say I was making this for IGTV and I wanted to post the whole video on IG, right? All I would do is I will go over here to footage. I'll take the clip itself, the full clip, and I'll drag it over here onto new item. So if I drag the full clip onto new item, it creates a sequence that is just that one clip, and the size and dimensions are exactly the same. Now, on the back end of YouTube, after you upload any video, it takes a little bit of time, but it creates auto-generated captions. YouTube does by default, right? Every YouTube video has auto-generated captions. Did you know that you could download that caption file? So yeah, so Premiere has this captions workflow, this captions workspace. So if I go into the captions workspace and I just have this big old fat file here, there's options. There's transcribe sequence, create a new caption track, or import captions from file. So I have gone ahead and downloaded the caption track from YouTube. I'm going to say import captions from file. And it's right here, captions. It's in my documents folder. I'll open that up. And it asks me, what format do I want it? Do I want it as a subtitle? Yes. It asks me, what style do I want it? I'll say none for now. It'll just be the default style that Premiere has. And where do I want to start it? I want to start it at the timeline start, because that's how the caption track was generated, from the timeline start. And I'll say, okay. And there it is. Those are the subtitles right up here. They've been generated already. Now, and they've been broken up into the proper lengths. because that's how it was from the YouTube auto-generated subtitles. So let's take a look at these. Hey, it's Valentina Vee, and today we will attempt to shoot one location with two different styles. We're gonna go from this to this and this. Now you can see that the captions are super tiny, right? So what we can do is we can go to edit and we just select any of the captions up here in the caption track. And okay, maybe not the one that says music. Let's go to this one, standing set, something that kind of, there we go. So we'll select this one and we'll increase the size. That's a little too much. That's fine. Yep. Let's make it a bold. Let's give it a little bit of space. Kerning, leading. I know this is Behance. I know that you people know whether this is kerning or leading. I do have a degree in graphic design and I keep forgetting. That rhymed. Okay, so perfect. So now that I've applied it to that one, right? It hasn't applied to everything, but I can make a track style here. So right now it says none, but if I go to create style and I rename it, so I'm going to say big subtitle black box. Now it is a style. And now that style has been applied to every single one of the captions. Say I wanted to change the aspect ratio of this, right? Maybe I want to make it a square now. I'll go right click, reveal sequence and project, and take a look. Because I dragged my original clip, remember this was my original clip and I dragged it into new sequence. That sequence has appeared in my footage folder right next to it. That's what happens whenever you take a clip and drag it into a sequence. But I have my sequences folder here. So let me rename it first. And I'll say visual style 16:9, 16 by 9. So I know I'll drag it into sequences just to make sure that I'm all organized. I will right click. I'll go to auto reframe sequence. Let's say I want to make it a square, right? So instead of 16:9, 1 by 1, I'll say create. So there we go. And you can see that the subtitles have updated, right? They've updated to the size of the sequence. They're not like running past the edges. They are now still very much on screen. And if I want to now, I'm like, wow, that's pretty intense. The size of these subtitles, that's pretty crazy. How can I adjust that in a way that is not going to like look so wild? I'll just go ahead. I'll select any of these, right? Select it. And right now it says track style, big subtitle, black box, right? But I can change the size of the text. I can even, I can even change the location a little bit because I know that there's going to be like, I know I'm going to tag someone in this, and I know that that tag is going to appear here on the bottom left of the screen. It's going to block it. I know that here it's going to say something. I don't know what, but it's definitely going to say something. So I want to keep it a little higher. And you can see that now I can create a new style with that. So I'm going to say create style, smaller subs, higher. Okay. And now all the subs are smaller and higher. But here's the problem that happened. As I did this, this entire thing was just one big block, right? So it auto reframed the sequence, but the sequence only had one clip in it. So essentially, it just auto reframed the clip. And that's no bueno because all it did was essentially still cut out the middle. So all of this stuff that like maybe I'm not centered. I mean, I'm centered in a lot of it, but let's say that this one, for example, I'm not centered. It doesn't recognize it because it's not different cuts. So you would almost have to, let's go back to visual style 16 by 9. You would almost have to go back and go, okay, where is the cut? You'd have to go back to editing, right? Let's hide the subtitles for now. you'd have to go back and say, oh, okay, where's the cut? There it is. So let's get my blade tool to C. Let's click C. Now I'm on my razor tool. Thank you. It's called razor tool, not blade tool. Valentina, what are you doing? Then I'll go right, frame by frame. There's the cut. The cut is usually on the first frame of the next cut, or of the next clip. That's where you place the cut. So here, okay, that's the cut, except now I have snapping on and it's snapping to the subtitles. So let me track lock that so it's not snapping, it's still snapping, whatever. Okay, then, okay, next cut is here. That's the next cut. Okay, oh, that's the next cut there. Cut. Okay, this is gonna take forever, right? Or is it? No, it's not. It's not gonna take forever at all, because all I have to do is right click it and go to scene edit detection. This is going to save your actual life. So I'm going to click scene edit detection and it's going to say, what do you want? And I'm going to say, please apply a cut at each detected cut point. Now, it's also going to say, do you want me to create a bin of sub clips from each cut point? Which is awesome, right? Because say that this is a string out and you want each clip by itself as a sub clip so that then you can like put them into other things. Totally a great way to do that. And then if you want markers at each cut point, you can also do that too. But for me, I just need this so that I can reframe it, right? So that each of those cut points creates a new little clip that then Premiere can go and say, oh, I know what this is. Let me auto reframe it. So I'm going to say, analyze. It's going to take a hot second to do, but guess what? I already did it. So we can just go to that. Bada bing, bada boom. It takes, it takes like a minute or two, but I didn't want to waste our time. So this is what that looks like. It inserted like a bajillion cut points because this is a 17-minute video. Let's see. Bada bing, bada boom. Paco's in the chat. Paco, when do you have time to be in the chat? Paco's doing everything. If you have just come here, hello, welcome. I'm Valentina. We're talking about editing for Instagram. Okay, so we have this situation, and we have our subtitles added, but I don't want to put the whole video on, right? I just want to put a small cut of it, let's say. And let's say that I also don't have access to the back end of this YouTube channel. I mean, I do, which is how I got the SRT file in the first place that I used to generate my captions earlier. I went to the back end of the YouTube channel. I downloaded the SRT file. It's very easy. You just go next to the video, click on the three button menu, and it's like, do you want to download the subtitles? And I'm like, yeah. But say I don't have any of that. Okay, so what do I do? How do I do? This is how. Let's go back to the visual style 16:9. Let's go back to the original video here. Double click it. It pulls up in our source monitor. And let's find the section that I want to actually use for my Instagram preview so that I can put it on Instagram and be like, hey, look, everyone, I'm so funny. You should go watch the full video because obviously you should. So let's find the funniest section where I'm being silly. Should be around here. There we go. We have a blue light off to the left and a purple practical light over here. Last light, I decided that she needs a little pop of a key light over here. So right when I say last light, and I could probably play this in full. Light, we have a blue light off to the left and a purple practical light over here. So right there, I'll start there. I'll press I, that's in point, I. And as you can see, it is now highlighted the latter half of that entire video clip. And I'm going to listen through to it until it's a logical ending. And then I'm going to press O.
Last light, I decided that she needs a little pop of a key light over here. I wanted it to be quite directional. The OG 120D from my personal collection. I have the reflector here. I have these barn doors that actually you can put a gel into. So I have a bunch of gels, and I think you'll see the theme of this episode is gels. If you have gels, you'll be well.
Okay, right there at that, right there. And I'll press O. And now that little section is selected. So I can, if I drag this into new item again, it won't be the full clip. It'll be just that. So I'll do that. So it'll just be that section. So now I have a timeline, a sequence that just has that section of the clip, and it's still called whatever that clip was called. So let me rename that, and IG preview, let's call it IG preview, right? Drag that into sequences. Now with this, I want to auto reframe it, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, all those cuts. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say scene edit detection, apply a cut at each detected cut point, analyze. Obviously it's going to go a lot faster because it's not a 17-minute video. So those are all the cuts. Then I'm going to right click, go to auto reframe sequence, and let's auto reframe it as a square. So IG preview square, create. There we go. Let's take a look at this framing to make sure it's right.
Last light, I decided that she needs a little pop of a key.
So this, right, it has it's very cropped in because it has all these other controls like the white balance and all of that. It's not showing up. So this one, I can turn off the auto reframing and I can actually scale it down a little bit. There we go.
Key light over here. I wanted it to be quite directional. The OG 120D.
This one too. I'm going to turn off the motion and make sure that you can read what it says in the actual text that was burned into the video.
G120D from my personal collection. I have the reflector here.
This one, I can either sort of, yeah, I can adjust it so that you can see what that says.
I have these barn doors that actually you can put a gel into. So I have a bunch of gels, and I think you'll see the theme of this episode is
this too. I'll change their framing so that you can see him walking across the screen.
So it is gels. If you have gels, you'll be well.
And then these as well. And I'll actually make them a little bit more like that. And that's fine. That's fine. So I've now reframed this entire clip for square. But the issue is if I start adding subtitles, they will not only overlay on top of some of these burned in graphics, but they'll detract from the actual video. So I'm going to letterbox the square inside of a tall rectangle, if that makes sense, right? So remember our tall rectangle, when we did our tall rectangle over here with the Toronto travel video, those, no, it was over here. The sequence settings were 864 by 1080, right? So over here, when I'm in my visual style, I'll go into sequences, I'll do a new sequence, settings, and it's going to be 864 by 1080. Not apostrophe 80, 1080. I'll press OK, and I'll call it IG cut tall square. Press OK. Then I'll put the IG preview square inside of it. So now I have the top and bottom to play with. And that's where I will be putting my subtitles. I'll put my subtitles along the bottom, and I'll put maybe a little header at the top if it decides that it wants to play nice with me. If not, then we will wrap or something. Maybe Paco, you can cut back to me so that we're not watching this screen, and I can maybe do some stuff with it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to give it another like 30 seconds. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But I really wanted to show you the auto captioning. So let me just restart it and I'll just show you the auto captioning because you get it. I've already done the pillar boxing or the letterboxing before. Letterboxing is like this, pillar boxing is like this, or pillar boxing, letterboxing, either or. I gotta hold on. What's the right one? Pillar box. Pillar box. No, I was right. Pillar boxing is the side, and then the letterboxing is the top and bottom. Okay. So here we are back in Premiere, and let me go to, okay. So this is our, let's just do this real quick. We'll find the part where I was trying to be funny. There we go.
120D. A purple practical light over here. Last light, I decided that she needs a little pop.
I pressed L to go faster.
You'll be well.
Okay, so I have that. I'm putting it on to a new timeline. Let's go. Let's do sequence settings. Let's just do square for time's sake. Right. And then let's add those subtitles. So all you have to do is go to the captioning workflow text, and then you can just click transcribe sequence. And then it's going to say, what do you want? Just all the audio? Or if you have multiple tracks, you can select only the stuff that you have tagged as dialogue. You say yes, 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 and then transcribe. And then it's going to literally listen to what it says, to what you're saying in the clip on your timeline, and it's going to transcribe it and create captions for you. And that is the last thing that I wanted to show you before we dip out. So hopefully it'll go fast enough that I can show it to you. Chris says pretty much a masterclass just now. Thanks, Vee. Okay, so this is really cool because now you can kind of like see what it says, and it's going to highlight as it goes.
I decided that she needs a little pop of a key light over here. I wanted it to be quite directional. The OG 120D from my personal collection. I have the reflector here.
So as you can see, there are some things that it got wrong, but what's super impressive is that it got the punctuation, the capitalizations right, which not all captioning softwares do. So if I click create captions, and it's going to say what format do I want it in and what style do I want it in. So now I can choose those styles that I did before, which of course got deleted because the computer crashed, but it's fine. You can choose one of those styles and you can say, okay. And now that's there. So instead of 8, I can go ahead and I can type, all right. All right. I decided that she needs a little pop of light over here.
I decided that she needs a little pop of a key light over.
Pop of a key light over here.
A little pop of a key light over here. I wanted it to be quite directional. The OG 120D from my personal collection. I have the reflector here.
So very minimal. I mean, when I tell you I've worked with a lot of auto captioning softwares, and this is so good, please check it out. It is in the new version of Premiere Pro. I hope you enjoyed this class today on like some tips and tricks that you could do for Instagram, like auto reframing, edit scene detection, automatic caption transcriptions. I hope this makes your life a lot easier for you and your clients. Until 2 weeks from now, I do this every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. Happy editing, and I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.